All right. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our BAM session today, our broker agent mastermind. Looks like we have a couple more coming in. We have a riveting topic today, and we are talking about TCPA laws, telemarketing laws. And I know this is a riveting topic. Everybody's very interested in knowing what our legal prohibitions are for marketing, and it's so fun and exciting. And that's why we have a great crowd on this Zoom call today. Now, I know it's kind of a boring topic, but this became a very unboring topic for me a couple of years ago when we got served by a whatever you call that person who comes to your door, knocks on your door, hands you a packet of information, takes a picture of you holding the packet of information. That's when you get served papers, and they've got proof that they've served it to you. I opened up the packet and found out that we were facing a federal class action lawsuit. And I didn't even know enough at the time to have a nervous breakdown because I didn't even know what any of the verbiage in the packet meant because I'd never been through that before. And chances are you haven't been through that before. And the purpose of this call is to keep you from ever having to go through that because it turned out to be one of my worst nightmares. It was an awful experience. We went basically, I'll give you an overview of what happened, and then I'm going to tell you basically how to make sure this doesn't happen to you. We had an agent who basically was doing marketing, approaching expired listings, and sent 2 text messages to somebody who was on the do not call list. And those text messages were actually 6 months apart because they listed their house, it expired. She sent a text message. 6 months later, the same house expired with another realtor. So she sent another text message. And then about a year later, after all that happened, this guy who was a used car salesman filed a class action lawsuit. My hunch, I can't prove this, but my hunch is that this attorney and attorneys like him, there's a handful of attorneys in the country who are doing this. And my hunch, and I can't prove it, but my hunch is it appears that they are sending postcards or some kind of communication to people who are on the expired listing lists. So just like you and I can get a list of expired listings from certain lead generators, attorneys can get that same list. They can subscribe, and then they can contact all of those people on the list whose listings have expired and say, have you been contacted by a real estate agent? And if so, if you're on the do not call list, I can help you get thousands of dollars. So that's my hunch. I can't prove it. If I had the resources to prove it, I would. If I had a direct connection with the Department of Justice, I would try to pursue that, but I don't have those things. So right now it's just a hunch, but somehow they're making contact with thousands of people on expired listing lists. And so in this particular situation, this used car salesman received the postcard or whatever communication from the attorney, contacted the attorney and said, yeah, I would like money. And so the attorney filed a class action lawsuit. Now, the misnomer with these telemarketing laws is that it's just a $500 fine. And that's what Congress enacted in the laws for telemarketing. They said if you're found guilty of making a call to somebody, a marketing call to someone who's on the do not call list, you can be fined $500 for that infraction. But if it's considered an egregious offense and you keep calling that person and it's egregious, it could be as much as $1,500, the fine. So that's what Congress, they thought, well, that's a penalty that fits the crime. But what these class action lawsuit attorneys have figured out is that they can completely ruin somebody's life by turning this into a class action lawsuit, and they can reap a fortune for themselves as attorneys. So the way they do this is the first thing they do is they serve you with papers for the class action lawsuit, and then once you're served with papers, you are forbidden by law to delete any records. So you're required, or it could get really nasty. You could even go to jail if you delete, unless you work for Congress or the government. You're not allowed to delete records. But if you, that's another topic anyway. But if you're just like people like us and you delete records, phone records, things like that, you could go to prison. So you don't want to do that. So because of that, then they will go in and they'll subpoena all of your phone records. And if you have any software that does the calling, if you have a Google Voice, they'll subpoena Google. Any technology, they'll subpoena everything. And in their discovery, they'll find out exactly what software have you used over the last 4 years for doing any kind of marketing, and they'll subpoena all those companies for all records. In this particular situation, just an example of how this can add up. If you were to make 10 contacts a day, say there's these expired listings, and you say you send out 10 text messages a day, then that's 36. That's 300 per month, which is 3,600 per year. So that means if that's a $500 per incident, then you're talking about a $1.8 million potential liability, but that's for 1 year, but they go back 4 years. So that turns into like a $7 or $8 million lawsuit that if you just send 2 text messages to somebody who's on the do not call list, it could potentially be an $8 million lawsuit, which for many people, that would be life altering. And so in the situation that we were in, I felt like we actually had and I didn't even know it was happening. I was the broker. I was just the broker, but I'm on the hook for everything that every one of our hundreds of agents in 20 markets in 4 states. I am personally on the hook for this. And one of the things that I learned about it, a few things that I learned about it, is that this type of lawsuit pierces the veil of a corporation. So you might say, well, I have everything in an LLC. Well, that doesn't matter. They will go directly to your own personal assets, whether you are an agent with an LLC or you're the broker with a S corporation, or if you're Gary Keller, who owns, I don't know, are they still the largest in the United States? The same attorney who came after us also was going after thousands, literally thousands of brokerages, including Keller Williams. And about a year and a half ago, Gary Keller had to write a check for $40 million to the same attorney. In our situation, because we're small pickings, we had to write a check for $175,000. Of the $175,000, 169,000 went to the attorney. 6,000 went to the victim of it. So that shows to me extortion, and it shows to me that it's not actually fair. It's not meant for justice. It's meant for people who have figured out a loophole. I don't think that's what the Department of Justice or Congress. I don't think that's what Congress intended when they came up with these telemarketing laws. But that's the way attorneys have twisted it so that they can become extraordinarily wealthy. And it was the same attorney who went after us, went after Keller Williams, EXP, Coldwell Banker, all the big ones. It's the same attorney doing it nationwide. So the problem is in our situation, we actually had a pretty good case to fight it because we're 100% commission brokerage. We don't incentivize our agents to go out and do that. Like Keller Williams, they make money when their agents are going out and getting expired listings. The Keller Williams, the brokerage makes money on that. But in our situation, we're 100% commission. So I had attorneys that said, yeah, I think you are fine. I think you could likely prevail if you go to court. The problem is it will cost $200,000 to $300,000 to fight this in in federal court. So, and they know that these class action attorneys know it'll cost two or $300,000 just to fight it. So who's going to pay that? So it's much better to just, write the check, $175,000, and go on to the next move. So that's how that came down the pike. That's so if you're thinking, well, I'm not worried about TCPA. They look, nobody can take me down. Like I'm as bullheaded as anyone, and I talk to the very best attorneys in the country. I talk to the smartest people. Once they get you in this trap, there is no way out. And that's why they even got people like Gary Keller and some others. It's a trap that you can't get out of. So rather than getting into the trap and trying to figure your way out of it, I'm going to help you avoid the trap. Okay. So I'm going to show you what the laws are so that you can be careful. Also, if you have a question, throw those in the comments. I'd love to see those. And I'm going to give you a very quick run through of the TCPA laws, what you can't do, what you can do. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A because this topic, probably more than most, is going to have a lot of questions from our gang. So feel free to get ready with your questions. So understanding TCPA laws, in case you didn't know already, TCPA stands for Telecommunications Consumer Protection Act. So that's what it means. To help you understand it, here's what you are not permitted to do according to TCPA laws, okay? Number one, you cannot cold call people if they are on the do not call list without express written permission. So most of the time, we don't have express written permission to cold call people. That's kind of a rare thing, unless they get on your website and fill out a form that has in the form, it says you're giving us permission to contact you via telephone or texting. For the most part, most of those leads are not giving permission for that. So you have to be careful to scrub your leads to make sure they are not on the do not call list. Okay. That can be very expensive. You cannot use software to send pre-recorded voicemail marketing messages, according to TCPA. Now, I used to have a subscription to a ringless voicemail service. And I remember when it first came out, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, their marketing thing was, hey, with this company, you don't have to worry about telecommunications laws because we're not actually calling the people. We're just doing a ringless voicemail drop. And so you can do this and get around the telemarketing laws. Turns out that didn't last very long because the government, legislators, attorneys, people who didn't like getting ringless voicemail drops. It turns out those became illegal and classified as illegal pretty quickly. So you are not permitted to do a ringless voicemail drop where you pre-record a message and then drop it into a voicemail. You can't do that unless you have express written permission to do that. You can't send a marketing text message to anyone without express written permission. So it's even so they treat text messages like phone calls. So just because you're not calling them doesn't get you around the telemarketing laws. Another thing to be aware of, I heard one of our agents recently, they said, hey, Chris, I'm going to do a bunch of cold calling, but don't worry, I'm getting a Google phone number, and I'm not even going to leave my name. I won't even mention Plum Tree when I do the voicemails. And I was like, that makes it even more illegal because then it sounds shady, and people know that, and they'll find you. Google can be, they can be also attorneys can go after Google to get your information. So you're not going to hide behind a Google phone number. They will find you. So you can't hide your identity or use a cloaked phone number, like using a Google phone number to hide your identity. You can't do that. That's illegal. Please don't tell me you're going to do that. And if you do tell me, please change your mind very quickly. So don't do that. The other thing is you can't call before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. So that's part of it. I don't think our agents probably do that. That would be a great way to get hung up on, but I don't think our agents do that. But it is part of the TCPA laws. Okay, so you can't do this stuff. Now, here's what you can do. You can call someone who is not on the do not call list with and you don't need prior consent to do that. So if you get an expired listing or a for sale by owner, these and they're not on the do not call list, then you can call them with a marketing message, and you don't have to get prior consent for that. Now, when I first heard about all this, I thought, well, everybody, certainly everybody is on the do not call list. So this is going to block out all marketing efforts. And as I started to research it, I learned that only about half of people are on the do not call list. So what you have to have is a mindset of, wow, that still gives me access to half of the people whose listings have expired, or for sale by owners. Half of them are not on the do not call list. So, and then the next thing, you can also call clients that you've had within 18 months of your last transaction. Now, some of you may have heard recently, there was the FCC was coming out with new rules, which was going to strengthen or tighten this. And this was just within the past few weeks that this was all coming. Everything was going to change. There's going to be pretty much no telemarketing laws or permission for anything, just about. And then a judge just shot it down in the last few minutes before everything took effect. Judges came in and said, no, the FCC is attempting to create laws which they are not allowed to do. So they considered it to be an overreach. So I didn't want to go into too much detail on what they were trying to do, but just so you know, the FCC is going to be when they interpret this stuff, they're looking at it as strictly as they possibly can, and they are not going to be in your corner if you get into trouble. Um, so the current laws, which almost got changed, but they didn't. So if you heard that things were changing, just so you know, it didn't change. The current laws are still that you can contact a past client if you're within 18 months of the last transaction. And this is by phone. You can call inbound leads within 3 months of their inquiry. So you can keep them in your system to follow up with them within 3 months of them contacting you. Maybe they were a lead on your website, or they were a lead that came in through Zillow or some other internet lead. So if they made an inquiry, you can stay in touch with them for up to 3 months. Now, auto dialers are kind of a complicated mess, and there's a lot of legislation, a lot of court cases that have come up regarding this type of technology. And a lot of the technology and a lot of the rules are outdated because technology has brought us so far. But an auto dialer is something that it's good to be aware of. You can't use technology for sending out bulk communications without express written permission, but you can use an auto dialer if you're making one phone call at a time and you're not using the automated voicemail drop feature that a lot of them have. And maybe some of you are confused. You're thinking, why would you call more than one person at a time? Have any of you ever used a voicemail dialer that makes three phone calls simultaneously? How many of you have ever used that technology? Okay, I see you out there. You telemarketing people. I've used it. And what it does, and that's how you could crash phones and do 100 phone calls in an hour. I used to hear people doing that. I was thinking, how did they ever do that? Well, you can make three phone calls at a time on an auto dialer, and whoever picks up first, you'll get connected to them. And then if one or two of the other people pick up the phone, it will give them a pre-recorded message. Well, you can't do that. Even if it's a pre-recorded voicemail drop through the auto dialer, you can't do that. So if you are subscribed to technology like auto dialers, make sure you turn off the automated voicemail drop feature and make sure you make it so it's only making one phone call at a time. So now, part of the benefit of that, and Scott Reif, our managing broker, and I were talking about this. He pointed out that one of the values of an auto dialer is that a lot of times they will already screen out calls if they're on the do not call list. So an auto dialer can actually help you screen people who might be on a do not call list. So so that's good. Um, you can call and text business numbers. So if the person has ever used the phone number that you're calling for business and it's advertised as a business number, then they are not able to claim a do not call violation. So, but that's not going to be very many calls. But that's why you as an agent get 75 text messages a day from insurance providers. You're getting all these spam text messages because you are a business and that's outside of telemarketing laws. Otherwise, lots of people would be getting fined. So now, when you do according to TCPA laws, you must identify yourself. When you are making a call, for this to be a legal marketing call, you have to say who you are in your brokerage, and you have to say that towards the beginning of the call. So make sure you're doing that. Another thing you can do, that one you must do, but another thing you can do is you can mail them marketing materials and stop by to drop those by at their house. So I know one agent, her strategy, and this isn't at our brokerage, but she calls every one of the expired listing numbers in the morning that are not on the do not call list. She makes those calls in the morning, and then in the afternoon, she takes whatever there might be, 5 or 10 who were on the do not call list, and she has a packet and she drives it to their house, taps on the door, says, "Hey, saw your listing expired. Here's my packet. Let me know if I can be a help." So she actually hand delivers it. If they're not home, she leaves it there on the door. And so, that's a strategy how you can do these. Because if you're doing expireds, maybe you'll get 10 leads a day. So 5 of them are on the do not call list. So in the morning, make your 5 phone calls. In the afternoon, hand out 5 packets. Others have a great system for following up with expired leads. I've heard where they will do basically a postcard or a mailing system. So if like 4 weeks in a row, people whose listings have expired, they're getting a mailing after mailing after mailing. And that's been extremely effective as well. So it doesn't always have to be a phone call. So that's our basic content. I wanted to get it through as quickly as I could so that you would have a good concept, a good idea of what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. But I know that probably brings up questions. So, what would be some of the questions you might have about these fun TCPA rules? Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Where do you find the do not call list? Like, how can you search somebody quickly? Or is there a database or something?
Well, there's 2 ways. One thing for us to our new and improved system as a brokerage to make sure that we are compliant and that we have what they call safe harbor if we were to ever get sued again. We make available to our agents the do not call list on our Plum Tree Business Center at plumtreebusinesscenter.com. So you can go there. There's a telemarketing TCPA list section and you can download the list. So the problem with that, we get the lists from the government, we download them, we pay a subscription to get these lists, but the lists are basically a spreadsheet of they're a spreadsheet of phone numbers, and you have to do a search for each one in the spreadsheet to find out if the number is on the do not call list. So it's a very arduous process. But that's the way the government's giving it to us, is like that. Okay, so we're doing that. But to me, the best way to find out if someone's on the do not call list is to subscribe to a service. Um, so if you're getting expired leads, there are services that provide the lead data, and they will notate they already scrubbed the list to find out if people are on the do not call list. And so you get the list and you just don't call the people who are on the do not call list. That, to me, that's the best way. Or for sale by owners, you can subscribe to for sale by owner lists and get them so that they're scrubbed, so you don't have to worry about calling someone on the do not call list. There's also services that have general, that they're not just expired or for sale by owners, but they're just general lists you can get of people on the do not call, and you can upload a list to their service. You have to pay a subscription for it, but you can upload your list to their website, and they'll scrub it and tell you which ones are not on the do not call list. And it costs money, but it's also much quicker than trying to go through a CSV file and find the numbers, do a search for each number one by one. To me, the Land Voice and some of the others, I think there's Mojo. Is that one, Mojo Dialer? There's other services that provide a scrubbed list. To me, that's so much easier. And like you said, it might cost $100 a month, but I mean, for the whole month, I personally wouldn't have time to go through a CSV file and do a search for, like, if I had 10 leads for the day, man, that just seems like a headache. I would rather pay someone else to scrub the list. That's me. That's the way I would work. But I see that hand raised, Marcy. What do you have for us today?
Hello, good morning. Thanks for sharing this, Chris. Having had to defend myself in a crazy lawsuit not that long ago, I can tell you that even though you talked about the subpoenas, that's on behalf of the plaintiff. So they're going to have their lawyers rack up all kinds of expense subpoenaing documents. And then your job as a defendant is to pay your lawyer to read through all of those subpoenas. So you could be completely, free and clear of any guilt, and it doesn't matter. When you're sued, you have to defend yourself. And that's where they make it so punitive for us. And, we're not guilty, but we still have to defend ourselves. It's a terrible situation to be in. And the other thing is, most of us have taken the IRS tax advantage to be able to, save money on legal loopholes by becoming an LLC. And if you are ever sued for anything and you operate as an LLC, you cannot defend yourself by yourself. You have to hire an attorney.
Point.
There's no options there. Let's see, David Snyder had mentioned something at the very top of the chat, and he said about keeping a log and what was it, day and time. And then he mentioned something about door knocking. So is door knocking off limits too? You can literally just go, even though there's a do not solicit sticker on their door?
There are some laws for that too, and each jurisdiction has their own codes. Typically, some of them there's many codes, many areas that have codes where you actually have to file for a permit with the city to be able to do that. Some areas, most areas are not quite that strict, but my understanding, maybe some others here, if you see a do not solicit sign at the front of a subdivision, I would probably stay away from door knocking in that subdivision, unless someone else has some better, more trained advice than that.
And the final comment I have is with regard to emailing. So when you register your phone number, they also ask you for your email if you'd like to register your email so you can stay on some sort of list so you don't get spammed. Clearly, nobody pays attention to that. But thank you for putting in there the notes about if you ever put your own phone number out as a number for business like we do. Our phone numbers are on everything, so that negates any do not call. And again, if you're promoting your email as a way to reach you for business, they can, just slam the hell out of you there. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll probably have to do another an email session similar to this to talk about canned spam laws and all. Uh, Big picture, if you do send a marketing email, you definitely want to have a easy, they call it an easy unsubscribe, or maybe even a one-click unsubscribe where they can just click one. It really bugs me if you have to click on something, then you have to find out, well, okay, well, what was the email address that they sent it to? Then I have to enter that, and then I have to, are you really sure you want to unsubscribe? Just one click is the best, or you can just say, please reply with unsubscribe to take you off the list. So
Right.
having an easy unsubscribe there is one of the big keys for that. So there's
Krista,
a
a
few
question
other
came up.
rules, but that's the big thing. So go ahead, Scott.
A question came up about FSBOs. So is it my understanding that if you have a buyer that's interested in the house, you can call that prospective seller to schedule a showing, but you can't call to solicit services?
Yes, that's exactly
Okay.
right. So if so everybody, when we talk about TCPA laws, everyone tends to, especially aggressive marketing people, they tend to think, how can I get around the law? How can I get around it? How can I sneak through? So, there's some agents who will call a for sale by owner and say, oh, I have a buyer for your home. And do you mind if I stop by to do a preview of your home for my buyer? But they're lying. And so let me just say it's a really bad idea to use lying as a marketing strategy. You're not going to build a big, great business over time with that. So if you now, like Scott mentioned, if you have a real buyer, then you can call someone, even if they're on the do not call list. If they've advertised their phone number and said, hey, our house is for sale, you can call them if you have a buyer. If you don't, then stay away from it. Don't try to play a game with it. Don't have a imaginary buyer. And so the other thing is, if some of those Zillow ads and other for sale by owner type ads online, they'll say right in the comments, realtors do not call. No agent calls. If they say that, stay away from it, because that's you could get into some trouble with that. So just be careful out there when you're doing your calling.
Chris, I've got a question. I think I know the answer. I just want to double check. So we mentioned how businesses are exempt. I have in the past allegedly telephoned for rent by owner signs and asked if they thought about selling. Is that enough in the green area that I can do that again?
And you're saying for rent, because then it would be a business that they have a rental
Right.
business. I am not able to give legal advice on that, but but I
So
can find
I'm
out.
hearing for the time being, maybe don't do that, and we'll get some clarification.
Yeah, you see the problem with it. Let's say 90% of the law seems to go in your favor, but then an attorney says, "Yeah, we're going to sue him anyway." So then you have to spend $300,000 to defend your position. Well, wait a minute, he was a business. Yeah, not really. I don't know. I think it was. Some people think it was. We'll let the judge decide for $300,000.
I'll just stick to mailers.
Yeah, nothing wrong with mailers. Those are definitely a good way to go. Now, the other thing is, though, like if somebody is a for sale by owner, and if you're wanting to buy it for yourself, that would definitely be a reason to call. You'd be okay to call them for that, or rent it if you wanted to rent it for yourself. That would be okay. But if you're trying to market services that you're providing for them, that's when it gets a little muddy.
Perfect.
Cool. Any other thoughts or questions, comments?
Hi, Chris.
All
How are
right.
you?
Hey, Paula.
Hey, I know that this was kind of covered, but I just want some clarity because I've drafted this real nice email for expireds and I'm like terrified to send it now because I'm like, am I gonna get in trouble if it's an email that I send and they don't want it? Because I don't want to have to defend myself. So is that something, I mean, there is it's a program that there is an unsubscribe button built right into the email. So is that
Yeah.
something that I should be comfortable doing then?
I wouldn't mind having a conversation with you offline about it
Okay.
and taking a look at it specifically.
Yes. Okay.
But I think you do have more ability to contact people through email than you would through phones. So
Okay.
it's probably not quite as strict. There can be abuses to email that have hefty fines. So
Okay.
you do still want to be careful. But the key to it is, especially if you have a system for emails where you're emailing people every day, you've got this system that's going. Some of the keys are to have a quick unsubscribe option for them. If they do unsubscribe, you have to honor it immediately.
Right.
And then you want to make sure you identify yourself and your business correctly. So it can't just be from some realtor out here wants to,
Yeah.
it has to be you and your business. And then it has to have, if you're doing a marketing email, very specifically focused and systematic, you want to have an address for your business
Okay.
somewhere like in the footer of the email. So
Okay.
those are a few of the key things to make sure it's legal and compliant. But I wouldn't mind taking a look at that just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome.
I have another
Any other
question.
thoughts?
Sarah here
Okay.
again.
Hey, Sarah.
So I've been using conversion a lot. Hi. And I noticed that I put out a squeeze page. They filled out their address. This is for home evaluation. And then of course they stop. They don't want to log in and give their info. But conversion takes their IP address. You know that, right? And it gave me a
Yeah.
maybe phone number and a maybe email. And I was thinking, at first I thought, and I just want to share this with other people, I thought that the lead gave me that. But is it correct to say, Chris, that the system gave me that number and email?
Yeah, they have two ways of displaying that through conversion. One of them just shows if you want to follow up with them, this is probably who they are. But for that type of lead, they have not opted in for phone calls or texting. So
Right.
you definitely want to be careful about that.
And
Then now a lot of times, because they fill out that information for their address, a lot of times they'll take the next step and actually fill out the form. And if they do that, you'll get another type of lead where they actually have opted in to receive information. But it does show on there, it does differentiate. These people have filled out the form, these people haven't. So be careful in contact.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Be careful of the do not call list. I can look at that list, but would I still be allowed to see them emails, even though they didn't
Sure.
opt in for an email? Okay.
Sure. As long as you follow the can spam stuff, so you want to have an easy unsubscribe option for them, which might be just a little message that says reply to this with unsubscribe, and we'll take you off the list.
Okay.
So you want to have something like that in your footer. You also want to identify yourself and your business and have a business address on there. So find one of our office locations and have that in your footer for your email.
Does conversion in the drip campaign, when they send an email, give you that option for them to opt out? So that way I don't have to
Yes.
create my own. Okay, good.
Yes. Conversion has a one-click unsubscribe. It's really nice.
For text and email, is that correct?
Yes, but I would not use conversion for texting unless somebody
No,
has ask you to send a
Yes, I
text message
agree.
to them.
I just wanted to make sure. There was another
Yeah.
question, but maybe I will email you, text you later. But yeah, conversion is something definitely trying to learn more of. And then also
Yeah.
work on the do not call list at the same time. So it's a little tricky.
Yep. It all takes some time, but then once you get it all, get all your systems in place, it'll work well. Cool. Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Kathy, is there a chance you could show us that background one more time? I just got to see a little bit more palm tree and oh gosh, we're gonna get the tour now. I didn't realize you're wireless. That's even better. Yeah, so this isn't a green screen. That's those are real people, I guess, in boats. See, that's if we can't be there, at least we can see that there's some people having happiness somewhere. So this is nice. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for your time today. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out. Don't forget Scott Wright. He's our managing broker. So if you have complications with a deal or something, he is happy to work with you. Same thing with Chris down in Kentucky, Chris Johnson. If you have deal issues, if you need some support, they can help you. We've gotten to a point where I get more messages per day than I have the ability to respond to. I feel awful about that because I would love to be personally involved with everyone, but it's just it's gotten a little bit too complicated. So we have people who are better than me at responding to issues. We'll talk soon. Have a great week. Hope you have a fabulous week. Go make some money.